All right, Christian, Steven, nice to see you both.
Hey, Kevin. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm really excited from this one, gents. This is one of the like best demos I've seen of Tableau in a really long time. So I'm really excited to show it to the group here. So I'll let you take it away from here.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. Can you see my desk? Can you see the presentation running, right?
I can see you two, and I can see the slide. I think everyone can see the slides up.
Thank you for staying to Tableau DataDev for AI agents. Today, Stephen and me are going to show you how you can learn Tableau as crucial for AI development with Tableau DataDev tools. Please, the forward-looking statement, please use this content, check it, but don't take decision based on this content for bias stocks. Today's agenda is about what is the world of AI development. Stephen is going to talk about this. Then I will continue with what is an AI agent, more about Tableau developer tools, and then Stephen is going to finalize with a demo. Really amazing demo. Stay there. I am Christian Saavedra Moineau, Senior Solution Architect at CEO Matrix. We are a gold partner, Tableau Gold partner that helps organizations deploy, train, and adopt Tableau and data solutions. I am also a 4 times Tableau DataDev ambassador, co-leader of the biggest Latin Tableau user group, Comunidatos, and co-founder of the DataDev Quest initiative with Kyle, Zach, Jordan, Marcelo, and Paula. You can connect with me by linking or follow my blog. Please, Stephen, continue.
Yeah, great. All right, my name is Stephen Price. I'm a lead solutions engineer at Salesforce. And what I chose to put here is some sample art I made over the years using AI. The one at the bottom was a product called My Cafe Studio, and I must have used it close to 10 years ago or something. But that was the way things used to come out back then. And now I'm using Midjourney for the top 2. I come from Ecuador, and Christian and I go back a good amount of time. We've worked in Latin America and done analytics together for a while. So presenting together was a great opportunity. We got something to share with you today that's very, very exciting to me, and I think you'll find it exciting too. Yeah, it's all about AI, so let's get into it. The world of AI development. Do I need to click on the next button? Is it? Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
All right, the world of AI development. What are building blocks for building LLM apps? I thought this was a good place to start because agents is really a way of doing things that has been around for a while, and it's still evolving, but it's not the only way of developing with LLMs. If you didn't know, these are a bunch of LLM vendors out there. Databricks is one, but also Salesforce. Not many people are aware, but Salesforce Research has put out a lot of great models too. LLM gateways are a tool or a building block you would use so that you could build an app and then swap an LLM for another. Like one time you want to use Anthropic, and then later you want to use OpenAI just to test things. That being bring your own model type of functionality is what you would get from these type of logos: Einstein, Vercel, Ollama. LLM hosting, you can host your models locally too with Ollama. Hugging Face hosts a bunch of models. Really, we're just going through a bunch of the tools that people have been using so far. This one's pretty important. This one's called RAG, or Retrieval-Augmented Generation. Because of time, we won't be able to read the full text here. These are vendors that do it today, including Data Cloud, but also LlamaIndex and LangChain. And that's almost like building your own private Google search for an LLM, where you would put in like a PDF and ask questions about it. Think about it that way. You could store that data in what's called a vector database, and these are other vendors. Data Cloud is there, but also Pinecone, Databricks, Mongo. PostgreSQL has a vector database too. It's incredible. And that's it. Just to give you an introduction, you'll later see an app that does LLM development without agents and some example of agents as well, but we need to understand what that even is. So go ahead, Christian.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, let's talk about what is an AI agent. The first thing is that this is changing right now. It's still not a widely accepted definition. And that I did here is more like bring the key players definitions and then show you as you can have an idea of what it is. For example, Salesforce, they told us, hey, an agent force agent is a proactive autonomous application that provides specialized always-on support to employees or customers. They are equipped with necessary business knowledge to execute tasks according to their specific roles. And NVIDIA say a agentic AI system ingests vast amount of data from multiple sources to independently analyze challenges, use sophisticated reasoning, and interactive plan to autonomously solve complex multi-step problems, develop strategies, and execute tasks. Also, I bring some other definitions from other players like a Databrick, LangChain, and LlamaIndex. You can see it in detail after the recorded version. Then, for me, I try to make a kind of a definition to describe what is an AI agent. Then I define it as an autonomous system capable of learning over the time using LLMs to reason through a problem, create a plan, and execute actions in order using a set of tools to achieve these specific goals. Some characteristics of the AI agents are autonomous. What means that? Basically, that operates without minimal human intervention, that has perception, that gather data from environments through data inputs or sensors, because also this is a key important. AI agents is not only the digital world. In the future, will be in hardware too. Memory is about remember what they have in the previous interactions. And doing these interactions make reasoning, like take a high-level challenge, high-level problem, and then basically divide it and organize a plan that can learn, coordinate, and adjust over the time. Then another characteristic is the tools. The tools is basically that each agent, when it's developed in the code, you define some definition of functions that execute the task. These create an action-oriented, that is task and recommendations, and basically operate with a purpose. Something that took me like a big change in time is about the revolution that happened in AI development begins with React. This paper basically brings the idea that you can ration and create an actions. From there is that begin this revolution of use agents. And another one that to me is making a revolution is the use of LangGraph, because basically you can now build using graphs all the flow of the agent without create and also connect between many actors and many agents. I am going to introduce also about the Tableau DataDev tools and the program. Basically, Tableau provides us a DataDev program that you can get it in this link, developertableau.com, where you can get many resources. One of the resources is developer tools, where you can connect, extend, enrich, embed, automate with some APIs that Tableau provides. For example, REST API, extensions, metadata API, Hyper API. All of that, each of them can see in details the documentation. Also, we have access to GitHub repositories where you can get samples. A Slack channel that is basically the way how we can communicate because it's more real time. We use the forums, but more use the Slack channel. There you can get it in the developer Tableau. You have access to developer advocated, that is people as that is really active in the community, and also Tableau employees that are part of the GitHub repository that basically they really like to know for what you are using or use cases that you have, and you can cooperate with that, and you can make a really good questions and you will get amazing answers. Also, apart of that, we have access to training, pre-release, and hackathons. Something that I want to show you is that a part of all of that, we have access to the cloud developer site. That means that you can have your own site for development. Remember that this is used for development with the purpose of development. Don't use it as a commercial. But here, basically, you have a fully operative cloud site with a few users, with administration that you can test the many of these libraries and APIs. Then coming back with the agent and AI development. As I said before, tools is one of the characteristics of the agent that basically with the tools, you can define a function that will be used by the agent to make actions. Then I bring some use cases for each of them related with the Tableau DataDev tools. For example, with the REST API, you can query pools and get insights. Or with these SQL data services or Headless BI, basically you can query the data and also inject calculations in a shared data source. Metadata API allow us to know the catalog and know, for example, which one are the structure of the data sets that are published in a Tableau server and use it in interaction with the agent. The Hyper API can allow us to create new data coming from the data that basically is created by LLM and republish online in the Tableau server. With webhooks, we can automate metrics and know when something changed and give to the agent a trigger to they continue and follow another instruction. And with Document API, we can basically create, based in templates, we can create a new Tableau workbook that can be published and shown. I forgot to mention the Embedding API. Basically, you saw this standard that is about create a chat. Then you can use Embedded API to put it inside of the chat with JavaScript and include a live workbook connected to Tableau. Then let's continue with a Agentic QA solution with Steven, who is going to show you the architecture and some amazing demo.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Christian. And I guess just to give a recap, our goal there was to introduce the subject of what an agent even is. And it's kind of, you can think of it a way of sophisticated prompting. Somebody added an engine that takes in your prompt, but then instructs the LLM, before you do anything else, write a plan and identify what information is missing and what kind of actions should you take to even answer this question, saving you the time of having to give it that thorough of a prompt. And you're really looking at that being what is being described as reasoning. Now, the other topic that was really important here was Tableau has a bunch of APIs and developer resources. How can we translate those into LLM use cases or agent tools? That's the subject of this section of the presentation. Here's a proposed solution. It's called Agentic Q&A with Tableau. And the idea here is to set up a chatbot or integrate into a chatbot. And there's so many names for these things. I guess agent sounds even better. But integrate with an agent in such a way where either this is the main actor or it's servicing another agent upstream, but it's here to answer questions about your data. It's here to be able to surface the work that you've put into Tableau into something useful for that type of chat experience. And it works with layers. Now, you'll hear analysts and data teams all the time, they wish they could produce more answers to the business with less effort. And they're always getting all these questions that they wish there was a better way to handle that volume, because there are other questions that are difficult to answer that really need their attention to. What you could set up is a layer that uses predictive AI and the Tableau data catalog. And what I mean by predictive AI, it's largely Tableau Pulse. You define your metrics and it will create insights for you in the background. Those insights can be consumed within the Tableau Pulse UI, but it can also be provided to an LLM as a reference, and it can talk about those insights while you're chatting with it. The other use case would be to give it knowledge of the data catalog, so that way it would know how to find the right workbook to answer one of your questions, or the right data source too, and point you that way. So that's a good first layer, because those are facts, and all it needs is for you to update that reference or knowledge base, and you can answer questions with facts. Now, it's hard to always have a fact for everything, so you might need to have a layer where you dynamically query Tableau data for answers. You can set up an agent to do that too. Responds with the data set. It might even have a way to analyze that smaller subset of data set because you have a large published data source, but your question is specific. So you might need a few fields and a calculation or something, and then the LLM might be able to summarize the output of that for you. So that's a secondary layer. Now, you can only go so far in chat though. You could even build a full screen chat, and if you don't have more there to power the experience, it will be limiting. You can put in Tableau Agent into your applications to help solve for that. And Tableau Agent brings in best-in-class tooling for data exploration that you know today, web authoring. But now that it is in chat, it's so much more approachable, especially if you, let's say you start there and then you could end in a Tableau Agent experience if you really needed that powerful tooling. All of this relies on the work of Thomas, who came earlier, that he's working really hard at all these capabilities. So my big ask to you in the audience is back him, give him support, because that's really what we need to move this AI agenda forward here at Tableau. Now, this is what it would look like. We have a lot of different offerings on the Tableau side: Agent, Pulse, Headless BI. Then there's all this tooling out there, including Agentforce, but then there's other frameworks like LangChain and whatnot. There's just so many opportunities is the point here. We want you to think of ways to integrate with that ecosystem as you're looking at this presentation. And at a high level, what we'll share with you today, there's on the left-hand side what you would call a knowledge-based tool, which would be a way to query a vector store where you put that predictive, those predictive insights from Pulse, the data catalog, and it becomes a knowledge base or basically like a library that an LLM can readily reference. On the right-hand side, you have the Headless BI tool that can query a Tableau data source for you. It'd be cool to have that be standalone, or it could work together with a knowledge base, and that's what this little diagram is showing. In more detail, all of this is going to be in the presentation and recorded if you want to look at it later. But this in more detail, I can't spend that much time on it. But let's say you start here with an application that you set up. That's what you'll see today with a question, a user query that will go into an application. It's in React this time. And the first option of a flow here would be to go to an agents framework. I'm using LangChain that has access to the knowledge-based tool I mentioned earlier and the Headless BI tool. And this engine can reason. One of the paths for reasoning is you declare tools, and I'll choose one or more to use to answer the question. And it kind of gives you that out of the box. And you pass the user message into it, and you register tools, and it's supposed to handle the rest for you. After it gets a response from all those tools, or as it's doing that, it's operating with an LLM gateway that would let you bring in different models, and that way you're not really limited to just a single vendor. And you get a response from the agent to answer your question. The other flow, and these could work side by side, is to go into an embedded experience where you have embedded authoring, and that pulls in Tableau Agent, which I'll go into more detail, but that should also provide some sort of an agent response. It's actually more sophisticated than that because it lets you create and save workbooks. Those are artifacts. So very powerful experiences overall. In more detail, let's look at that knowledge-based tool. It's composed of two parts. You need what's called a RAG pipeline, and this is a common term. RAG is Retrieval-Augmented Generation, by the way. And what this pipeline describes is what you should be familiar with already, ETL. Hell, there might be a way to do it on Tableau Prep. What I've done in the demo you'll see soon is pull in metrics. So you have your published data sources, you create your metrics, and then you request insights through the metrics REST API. When it came to the data catalog, workbooks, and data sources, metadata API really is the best at that. And pull in all of that data, and this step right here has a little llama icon. That's a tool called LlamaIndex that creates embeddings. It's a very thorough subject, but it creates a way to represent that data that is called a vector, and a vector database can now store it. That logo right there is a pinecone. On the other end of the architecture, you need a retrieval or a way to retrieve those vectors from the vector database. and have the LLM talk about it. So this is similar to what you saw earlier, but simplified. You have a user query going into the application. LlamaIndex is doing the retrieval too from the vector data, and which is ultimately reflective of your analytics. And it takes seconds to update a vector database, so you can keep those in sync. That earlier pipeline, you could set up a webhook, you could schedule it every morning, and that's really all it takes. As often as a data source would refresh, you might want to schedule that. And it interacts through a gateway and you get your response. And this is, if you've seen any demos with LLMs that use RAG, that's basically the demo where, or Notebook ML, you upload a PDF and you have a podcast and you can chat about it. This is the underlying technique. Now it's demo time, so I'm going to share my screen, and we are doing well on time. Just give me one moment. And let me know, can you see my screen?
Yes, you're
It
good.
looks good? Okay, yeah. Excellent. This is a website you can visit today. It's called embeddtableau.com. And this is really where a lot of the story started. The purpose of this website is to guide a person who's new to Tableau to get started with embedding it into an application. There's a section for you to get started. There's a section for more thorough architectural topics. As LLMs came out, one idea was to add a chat experience that could talk about these guides. So you could ask questions such as, what are entitlement tables? So when I mentioned knowledge-based tool, that's a common LLM project you'll see in companies today, is let's set up a knowledge-based Q&A that will be able to talk about the company manual or whatnot. In this case, it talked about data security and row-level security. Many times it even mentions Tableau outright, because it's not like ChatGPT. It would give you an answer that's generic to software. This experience is hooked up to Tableau white papers. So it's able to mention the right use case for that concept. And that's where it started. We thought, okay, why do we set up an experience where it could help people get started? Now, what if we looked at this demo right here, where we have that same knowledge-based experience in mind, but now the idea was, what if we gave it knowledge of our metrics created in Pulse? That's what you see right here, these metrics. This is a custom UI for Pulse. You can embed Pulse in a way that it uses the native component, the way it looks, but you can also request the data and the insights through the REST API and build your own. So this was a good starting point too. We're already working with the Pulse REST API. All right, let's rag it up and vectorize that data so we can ask questions like, give me a KPI update. And you're out running, doing some exercise, and you ask your watch that question. And maybe your watch will respond verbally, not in a table. But really, that's kind of what you need to set up there, because you just need to transform that into voice later. But you see, we got a nice table, and it's reflective of the same data that we see up here on this screen, including how much has changed and the sentiment, is it good or bad? That inventory is going up, that's usually not a good thing. That means you're not selling. So great, we gave it knowledge of our metrics. I can ask it a question like, describe the shipping time metric, anything unusual. And this is pulled into not a Superstore data set, but e-bikes. So it talks about electric bikes. But yeah, it's giving me a little description that was in the metric definition and how the value behaved in the last few days to answer that question. Really interesting stuff. The other use case is the data catalog. What workbooks and dashboards can I view? Because when you query the metadata API for a user, it keeps their permissions in mind. So these are dashboards I can go see. And it's giving me the link to that as well. I could ask a variant of that question, such as which dashboard covers shipping time, to help me go find it. So great stuff. You could have basically search, but it's all natural language through this RAG architecture. So that was the first demo right there. That would be the kind of experience you can set up if you're thinking about RAG as an architecture and a way to build for LLMs. The second solution right here, called Headless BI tool, This uses a lot of the Tableau semantics, metadata API, all the work that you put in to create a data source that's user-friendly, that has clear field names. I even learned, I didn't know this, but I even learned you can go into the Tableau UI and add a description for each field. So there's layers I was not aware of until I started this work, but that information is useful because when you ask a natural language question about a data source, having all of that information will help the AI. Maybe there's a hierarchy somewhere that it needs to take into account, or in order for it to do a calculation correctly, it needs to understand something about that data. That work is so helpful. So the flow looks like this. You ask a question to the chat, it goes to an application. This is React, but it has a React backend too. It's JavaScript. But then there's this LangChain data tool that goes through the Headless BI offering. What that means is that it writes or requests a JSON payload for the data that you would need to answer your question. And Headless BI is set up to connect to your published data sources in a way that's very safe. So you can really scale that out. Like you could have query data tools for all sorts of topics, or even have a tool that comes before it that will find the right data source for you to query, more of a pipeline along those lines. Ways to improve what you will see in this demo. But ultimately, when it gets a table of data, it will route it back to you for you to visualize. Let me demonstrate what that looks like. All right. Now, that is available right here. There's a repo that I'll share with you real soon. It's in the presentation that has a lot of this work with LangChain. And I'm hosting what's called a chain. This is an early form of an agent. They don't call these guys agents anymore. They just call them chains. But they were really simple to set up. So you could actually have this behavior run with a simple chain and not even an agent. It's hosted with LangServe. Now, the demo would be viewed on the playground right here. Let me reset the playground. There we go. And I can ask a question. It's hooked up to Superstore. So what about give me or sales by region and category? This is a Superstore data source. We'll see the output show up in this bar, but then we will be able to inspect the intermediate steps. And it's outputting a markdown table where we see west, south, office supplies, furniture. So like this is not something an LLM would just generate if it was trying to answer your question and not have the data, right? Like how it is not getting this wrong. And you can look at the intermediate steps to inspect what's going on. This is the main prompt for that chain that's telling it, hey, you're a Headless BI agent. And here's this big schema for Headless BI. What else? It also pulls in metadata about every field so that it knows the values of like what regions are in that data source once you start it. And that's what you see right here. It's really all of that information is the prompt it needs to understand your data source. Right here, that's when it starts generating. Once it gets your question and it has the information it needs, it says, look, to retrieve sales data categorized by region and category, we will include region and category columns along with sales. And this is the payload it wrote for Headless BI in this JSON body. So it's able to explain why it wrote it and then write the payload that's passed into the next step where it takes just the payload and it requests the data for you from Headless BI. This is the result. So it's like this JSON output. What you saw on the screen was me telling it convert that into Markdown because many chat UIs would use Markdown to render a nice table anyways. So it's a very, very common practice to use Markdown before it reaches the UI. But this is cool. This is tooling that LangChain gives you so that you could build chains. They have tooling for what they describe agents today, which is really LangGraph, and we'll see that a bit later. The other useful tool to keep in mind is what's called LangSmith that would keep a trace or logs of all your conversations, and you can come and inspect them in detail too. Kind of like similar to what you saw there, but there's way more tooling, and this goes back months of conversations. So very interesting stuff. That's what you would describe as a query agent. I am working to integrate this into the demo that you saw right here into this React demo. There's a video on YouTube doing it already, but you should soon see this in production too. So that will be exciting. Don't forget, it's at embeddtableau.com if you want to see it later. All right, now come back to the next topic, and that would be Tableau Agent. That third layer of using ready-to-go UI that's incredible for analytics, now with an agent there to assist you. The proposed simplified solution would look like this. You have an embedding app where you display embedded web authoring in many different ways. It's up to you where you put it. That will give the user access to AI assistance on published data sources that respect their permissions and row-level security and all of that. And then the output would be what in LLM world they call artifacts or analytics artifacts, so that you can save and edit. And it's cool because it's not like you just got an answer once and it was ephemeral. This actually stayed safe somewhere. You can come back to it later. So it's a very interesting way of doing things. Ultimately, success with LLMs is definitely UI plus data plus AI. This is the full solution. Just to remind you, we have the agents framework right here, but right now we're going through another path, which is this embedding web authoring to answer user questions. So let's demo that real quick too. And this experience is available in this chat. It would be available in the embedded dashboard. Let me just grab a fresh session real quick, just in case. All right, so it loads everything up, it logged that person in, and this toolbar, let me load that viz up real quick. I'm having to present to everybody here. This toolbar has access to functionality that you would have in the viz in the regular Tableau toolbar, but now it looks styled in a different way. So to export an image for the viz would be an option. Right, so I'm getting my image right there. Now, other interactions would be like interact with the view, maybe apply a filter, and then we can undo those selections and stuff like that. Here we have edit, and that would bring that web authoring experience. Now, I don't think this is supported yet, but it will be soon. Anyways, this is a good demo of what I mean. When you're pulling up web authoring, it could really be anywhere. So you could be in an application that looks like a blog that has a button that lets you edit the viz, and it's a pop-up. You don't even have to go to a different page. It could just be a pop-up giving you web authoring. Go to a new sheet. As soon as there we go. And start interacting with Einstein to answer your questions. There we go into Superstore. Or, I mean, Tableau Agent. My mistake. So that's honestly the gist of it. Now, this is going to be supported real soon, where you'll be able to have conversations with Einstein, but it's the presentation that matters. Something that I'm working on, it's not yet implemented, but if you were to come into a full UI for chat, and you could ask a question like, which dashboards can I view? Or maybe which one deals with shipping, give me the URL. Typing live. If I were to go to native Tableau and I had the tab open right here, I just realized, but let's go over there anyways. Then I'll be able to do agent right in here. And if you haven't seen Tableau Agent yet, I am a huge fan. I look at products that do LLMs right and are getting big, and it's all about that combination of what the LLM can do with the UI and the capabilities that are in the app, not just the LLM. So to see that done for analytics is incredible. But I'm just going to do a really quick demonstration. You come into a new sheet, you interact with the agent, and I'm pointed at Superstore, which is right, and I want to see sales by region and category, like I did in chat, but then this time, I'm not going to stop at a simple question like that. I'm going to want to drill down and do something that's more sophisticated. Tableau can give you all of that, from simple Q&A to text to this UI that you can put in your applications. It's really exciting. That's the end of this demo. So let me come back to closing this out. There we go. Okay. All right. So last thing. This is the last topic. We talked about agents, and the demo that you saw on embeddtableau.com is not yet agentic. It's not really interacting with an agent in the background. It's been able to use RAG and use knowledge bases to answer questions and simultaneously query a data source for you with the chain, but none of those were agents. And I want you to also understand that, because you can build apps that don't need that layer either. But it is very important to understand this layer because it brings so much to the table. That's the way people are building LLM apps today. What you're seeing on screen right here is the diagram that was generated by a LangGraph agent that is doing very similar things that you saw in the earlier demo. Let me show you what that looks like so you get an idea. That would be right here all in terminal. Let me make sure I stop that server right there. That was the chain running on LangServe. This right here, I'll show you real quick. How are we doing on time, by the way? Are we doing okay?
Couple minutes left.
Couple minutes. All right, almost done. Let me just run this.
Are you sharing, Stefan?
Oh, I am not, right? Okay, let me share my screen too. Thank you about that. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot going on, but there was a lot to show too. Okay, so what I did is I came back to the terminal. Here on the left-hand side, I'm running that newer agent. Every time you run it, it creates a new graph for you to inspect. The question that I have is, give me an update on my KPIs like I did with the other system. This is just not an API yet that I could bring in to that web app, but it will be soon. And you should see here on the left-hand side that new agent behavior. I'll show you the code repo too, because that part is one of the reasons why we wanted to share this info with you today. Let me see. Taking a little bit of time here. Okay, in the meantime, let me actually show you the repo. It's right here. Oh, there we go. It actually gave me the response back. And what I like about this agent is, since it has that reasoning augmented prompt where it has it like write a better prompt than you did, is kind of like what it does. It adds additional information that's able to pull in from the knowledge base besides the table the other system was able to do before. I thought that was a neat improvement. But I can also ask a question like, who is Joe Biden? And that's not a question that's in Superstore. That's not a question that's in my predictive layer or anything like that. So at some point, maybe in the traces, I'd be able to see it, look at the different tools and figure out which one's the right one. But it also has a third-party tool that will let it do web search. That's what it came back with when it talked about Joe Biden. It did a web search and it comes back with sources, is what that tool can do. So let's check that out. Let's stop the agent. Okay, let's look at the repo real quick. And that will close the session. But I wanted you to have an idea of what this looked like. It's on the internet, so you can contribute to it. There's a folder called Community that includes prototype work that we're doing with different agents, the chains that you saw earlier, and more importantly, here's the tools. So we're translating the old chains that we wrote into tools for the agents to use, but you're welcome to come and add new tools too and just get involved that way. There's so many other ways to help out. So that's what I wanted to share with you, is that there's active community work being done on this front.
Thank you, Seven. Let's go to the last one, only to show where the, I mean, we know that this one was a really complex topic. We did our best effort to simplify it and show you. But if you want to know more about that, please, you can join to the GitHub repository that mainly Stefan is the person who is the contact and knows more about that. Then you can go to the Embedding Playbook and the LangChain with also Joe.
Thank you, gentlemen. This is fantastic. I love this demo. What a great way to extend Tableau beyond what it does today. I think one question, I'll combine a couple questions that people have asked, which is, what is the base Tableau versus what's not in this? And then how can I use this? Can I use this without a license? Is this free? What do I got to do here to set this up?
Okay, I'll give you a good summary of both. On either repo that you see, Embedding Playbook is the first one. That would be the React front end. there's a .env.development file that's a template for the kind of API keys you would need. For example, the vector store and stuff like that. So you would see requirements on there for you to be able to run it, but you don't need any other licenses besides that. There's just a few API keys, and you provide, what you do need is a Tableau environment. If you have your own, that's great. You can get a sandbox too through the developer program. Don't forget about that one. Very similarly with the Tableau LangChain, if you have a Tableau environment, you might need like a few API keys, like that third-party web search. If you wanted to use that tool, then you can go get your own key. Keys to your own LLMs. If you want to use OpenAI, then go get your own key. And that's the type of requirements you would need to run either project.
And you are mute.
It'd help if I learned technology. Thank you, gentlemen. This is fantastic. I really appreciate you